Just Cheesy the Podcast, presented by Just Cheesy Productions.
Hi there, I'm your host, Fondue.
I'm Cheesy.
In this week's episode, we're talking about an entire day of cheese.
Whoa.
We're talking cheese for breakfast.
Ooh.
We're talking about the Ploughman lunch.
What?
We're talking about my favorite dinner.
Ooh.
And of course, we're talking about cheese for dessert.
Yeah.
And as you all know,
Yep.
no episode would be complete without our very cheesy joke.
Cheesy joke.
Stay tuned for episode number 101, Day of Cheese, on Just Cheesy the Podcast. According to cheeselovershop.com, cheese can be eaten for breakfast.
Ooh.
And we're not talking about scrambled eggs with cheese or cheese on a sandwich for breakfast.
We're
We're
not?
talking about things like dry and hard cheeses.
Huh.
They specifically recommend a cheese that's been rubbed with coffee.
Whoa.
They recommend hard cheese with things like jam.
Mmm.
And of course, they recommend cream cheese with some sort of
Oh,
fruit
yeah.
or some sort of meat on top.
Yum.
But did you know there's actually a cheese called breakfast cheese?
There is?
According to tasteatlas.com, California is the maker of a breakfast cheese called Marin French cheese.
Whoa.
It's made from pasteurized cow's milk,
Ooh.
and it's usually sold at a very young age of 3 days.
Whoa.
It says here the texture is firm and dense,
Yum.
slightly clay-like, and white in color.
Ooh.
It also says this cheese was originally sold in saloons where it was served as an alternative to pickled eggs,
Ew.
hence the name breakfast cheese.
Oh, okay.
And according to the cheesemaker's website, MarinFrenchCheese.com, they've been making this cheese since 1865.
Holy cow.
They say it follows the same cheese-making process as their other brie-style cheeses, except it doesn't get aged.
Whoa.
So it's a fresh brie without the white, bloomy rind.
Yum.
They say it has a slightly springy texture reminiscent of cream cheese curds.
Ooh.
The website goes on to say that it was a breakfast alternative for failed gold miners
Aw.
turned dock workers in the late 1800s.
Okay.
They say the gold rush came to an end and San Francisco Bay had a sudden increase in population
Oh.
and there were not enough eggs to meet the demand.
Oh.
So it was cheese to the rescue.
Nice.
And I don't know about you, but one of the things I think of first and foremost when I think cheese and breakfast is a cheese Danish.
Yeah.
According to Wikipedia, a Danish pastry is a multi-layered, laminated sweet pastry.
Ooh.
It's very similar to a croissant.
Ooh la la.
And when the Danish pastries were brought with immigrants to the United States, they were often topped with a fruit or cream cheese filling.
Ooh.
Cheese Danishes are not a sponsor,
No.
but if they were, the ad would go right here. Have you ever wanted to listen to the web?
Yeah.
Well, Newsly makes that possible.
They do?
They're an all-in-one audio super app for iOS and Android.
Super app.
You can listen to trending articles on the web on topics that you choose and get them read to you in a natural human voice.
What kind of topics?
Sports,
Cheese?
tech, business, science.
Cheese?
I'm sure there's even cheese.
Yay!
They even have an entire section for podcasts.
Are we there?
Of course we are.
Ooh.
It's one of my new favorite podcast apps. They even have digital radio.
Holy cow.
Just go to www.newsly.me to download it free.
Whoa.
Or use the link in the description. If you use the promo code CHEESY,
Cheesy.
that'll get you 1 month free premium subscription.
Yay, Newsly.
Now, back to the podcast. When I think of the perfect lunch, I think of the Ploughman's lunch.
What's that?
According to Wikipedia.com, this is an English cold meal
Ooh.
based around bread, cheese, and fresh or pickled onions.
Ooh.
Sometimes things like ham,
Ooh.
green salad, hard-boiled eggs, apple, and other accompaniments like butter and pickles are added to the dish.
Nice.
This lunch was associated with pubs and often served with beer.
Ooh.
In Pierce the Ploughman's Creed from 1394,
Oh.
it mentions the traditional ploughman's meal of bread, cheese, and beer.
Ooh.
And this diet was around for centuries.
Whoa.
But the specific term ploughman's lunch may have actually dated to the 1950s.
Really?
At that time, the Cheese Bureau was a marketing body, and they began promoting it in pubs as a way to increase the sales of cheese.
Whoa.
They began promoting the meal shortly after the rationing had ended.
Oh.
And they actually promoted this until the 1960s.
Holy cow.
When we talk about cheese and dinner, there are a million different options.
Yeah.
So I decided to tell you one of my favorites.
Yep.
And in all reality, you could almost think of this as a potato dish.
Ooh.
My favorite is the tartiflette.
Ooh, yum.
The recipe I've got here is actually in kilos. So they call for a kilo of baking potatoes, which is about 2.5 pounds.
Ooh.
I use enough to fit in a cast iron skillet.
Okay.
You're going to use chopped bacon and a full-size onion.
Ooh.
I usually cook up the bacon and the onion together. You take what they say here is a healthy glug of white wine, or frankly, whatever you've got. You saute them and let them cook down until they're kind of a thick caramelized onion.
Ooh, yum.
I'm a one-pan kind of gal, so I take the potatoes and I put them in with the onions and I let it crisp up a little bit in the pan.
Yep.
And then I take whatever cheese I've got. Now, on this website, it's called lacuisineparis.com. They actually use reblochon,
Ooh.
but I use whatever soft cheese I've got. So if I happen to have reblochon, I use it. If I've got brie or some other soft cheese, I usually cut it in half and then into quarters on the top of the dish.
Ooh, yum.
But whatever cheese you use, you take this entire dish and you put it in the oven about 20 minutes until it's golden brown and bubbling.
Ooh, yum.
We've talked about breakfast,
Yep.
lunch, and dinner,
Yep.
but we haven't talked about dessert.
Ooh.
According to culturecheesemag.com, the French and other Europeans traditionally conclude a dinner with a wedge or two of local cheeses, and they place that on the table with nothing more than a knife.
Ooh.
I agree with the article when they say that in the United States, we think of cheese as an hors d'oeuvre.
Yeah.
According to the article, the Europeans believe that cheese tastes better at room temperature.
Oh.
They savor the cheese at the end of a dinner
Ooh.
instead of eating it at the beginning of a meal.
Right.
The article goes on to say if you're still craving sweets at the end of a meal,
Oh, yeah.
that there are plenty of cheeses that have dessert flavors.
Ooh, yum.
They recommend pairing aged Gouda's caramelized flavors with candied nuts.
Ooh.
They recommend cream cheeses with bitter dark chocolate.
Ooh.
Or drizzle honey on vaguely spicy fudgy blue cheese to draw out the vanilla or woodsy notes.
Nice.
But what about those of us here in the States that really need a yummy, ooey gooey dessert?
Yeah.
Well, according to Bakersfield.com, Van Leeuwen Ice Cream brings back the Kraft Macaroni and Cheese Ice Cream.
Ew.
According to the website, Walmart is going to start shelving this ice cream once again on Monday.
Whoa.
This is a French-style ice cream that features, quote, buttery, slightly sweet flavor of the powdered cheese.
Yum.
And this ice cream maker is not shy when it comes to unique flavors.
Ooh.
Earlier this year, they had Hidden Valley Ranch ice cream. They had dill pickle.
Ew.
They've had peppermint stick,
Oh, yum.
caramel sticky bun, cinnamon brown sugar,
Okay.
peanut butter fudge, pretzel, kettle corn,
Ooh.
and holiday cookies and cream.
Ooh.
We've never had the opportunity to try the Kraft mac and cheese ice cream because it's never available when we get there.
Nope.
We're going to give it a shot this time and try to find
Yeah,
it.
we are.
And if we do, we'll let you know
Yeah.
if it's worth the hype.
I'm ready for a joke, Fondue.
Okay. What did the cheese say about breakfast, lunch, and dinner?
I don't know.
I'm great at every meal.
Great.
Get it? Great?
Yeah, it's kind of dumb.
Oh, yeah. It's just as dumb as all the rest.
Yeah, it is.
And a little bit cheesy. Thanks for listening to Just Cheesy the Podcast, episode 101, Day of Cheese.
Thank you.
We're grateful for all of the listeners out there, and if you
Yep.
could, please give us ratings every time you listen.
Stay cheesy, everybody.